Ethan was famously cold and arrogant, a man who never bent his knee to anyone. Yet, he would willingly drop to one knee just to change my shoes. He always said my ankle had an old injury and would ache if I stood for too long. So, in the trunk of his car, there was always a pair of white sneakers kept just for me. Everyone joked that Ethan spoiled me so much that I had lost the ability to take care of myself. He didn't care at all. He would just wrap his arm around me and smile. I spoiled her. Anyone got a problem with that? That was until his childhood friend, Chloe, whose family had just gone bankrupt, moved into our home. Tonight, at the end of the charity gala, Chloe sprained her ankle. I was about to ask someone to bring over some slippers, but Ethan had already knelt down. He slid my exclusive white sneakers onto Chloe's feet. "If you give me these shoes, Olivia won't be mad, right?" Ethan didn't even look up. His tone was incredibly casual. "They're just shoes. She's not that petty. Chloe's ankle is swollen. Just deal with it tonight, Olivia. I'll buy you new ones tomorrow. You can have as many pairs as you want." The chill of the marble floor seeped through the thin soles of my high heels. He took it for granted that because we were married, my things were his to give away. But he forgot. The person whose shoes were taken, her feet hurt, too. When we got home, Chloe looked down at the shoes on her feet and wiggled her toes slightly. "Olivia, your shoes are so comfortable. No wonder Ethan always keeps them ready for you." I said nothing. Ethan's voice was flat. "Just wear them for tonight. She has an old ankle injury. She can't just wear any shoes." Chloe immediately looked up. "I don't deserve such nice shoes anyway. If Olivia wants them back, I'll take them off right now." Ethan reached out to stop her and looked at me. "Olivia, I'll tend to your foot in a minute." I suddenly remembered many years ago when he first found out about my ankle injury. He had frowned just like this. Back then, he said, "From now on, I will make sure every path you walk is soft." The path was still the same path. It was just that he had given the softest part to someone else. Chloe sat on the sofa, carefully lifting her leg. "Ethan, where is the first aid kit? It hurts a bit." I stood in the entryway, bending over to change into my house slippers. The back of the heel rubbed against my raw wound, making my fingers tremble. Ethan looked back and saw this, his footsteps pausing for a second. Chloe let out a soft gasp. "It looks even more swollen now." Ethan ultimately turned toward the living room and pulled the medical kit from the cabinet. That tube of ointment was the one I frequently used during my physical therapy. My name was still written on the label. Chloe held it in her hand, looking at it. "Olivia, can I use this?" Ethan unscrewed the cap for her. "It's just ointment." He handed the ointment to Chloe, then stood up and walked over to me. "Let me see your foot." I took a half step back. His brow furrowed. "Olivia, don't start a fight right now." Chloe immediately spoke up. "Olivia, please don't misunderstand. Ethan is just helping me out first. You two have been together for so many years. You're obviously the one he loves the most." She sounded so understanding. But those white sneakers on her feet were blindingly clean. I looked down at my own feet. The edge of my high heels had worn my skin raw. A bit of blood was smudged on the edge of my sock. It wasn't much, but it stung badly. Ethan saw it too. "Tomorrow, I'll go with you to the store." I quietly declined. "No need." His movements froze. "It's just a pair of shoes. Are you really going to hold a grudge over this?" Chloe gently tugged at his sleeve. "Ethan, maybe Olivia doesn't care about the shoes. Maybe she cares that you put them on me." The living room fell silent. Ethan didn't deny it. I looked up at him. In the past, whenever anyone said something like that, he would always defend me. He would tell them that Olivia wasn't petty, she was just injured and knew what pain felt like. But now, he just rubbed his temples. "Chloe just got back, and she's not used to a lot of things yet. Just cut her some slack." Cut her some slack. I had yielded the guest room, half of my walk-in closet, and my usual spot at the breakfast table. Now, it was my shoes. I didn't say another word. I turned and walked back to the bedroom. Ethan followed me to the door. "Olivia." I stopped. "Tomorrow, I'll have the boutique deliver everything from your favorite brand. Don't throw a fit tonight. Chloe's family just went through a crisis. She can't handle any emotional stress right now." My hand rested on the doorframe. The throbbing pain in my heel came in waves. "Ethan, I feel pain too." He stared at me, looking as if he didn't understand. Chloe called out softly from the living room. "Ethan, I think I put too much ointment on." Ethan looked at me for 2 seconds before finally turning around. "Get some rest. Don't overthink things." After the door closed, I sat on the edge of the bed and peeled my socks off. The fabric was stuck to the wound. As I tore it away, I bit my lip. From outside the door, Chloe's giggles drifted in. "Ethan, Olivia's shoe size is almost the same as mine. Can I keep these shoes for now? I have to meet some clients at the office tomorrow." Ethan's voice came through the door. "Just wear them. She has plenty of other shoes." The next morning, Ethan stood in front of the shoe cabinet. "Come to the office with me this afternoon." We'll talk about the shoes later. Didn't you spend 6 months designing that dance therapy curriculum for disabled kids? We are finalizing the launch process today. Chloe walked out of the guest room, wearing my white sneakers. Olivia, look. Ethan really cares about you. Ethan didn't respond to her. He pushed a shoebox to my feet. These are similar to the ones from last night. Wear them. I looked at the shoes in the box. They were expensive and very soft, but they weren't mine. Seeing that I didn't move, Ethan's tone cooled. Olivia, I've already replaced them. Replaced. It turned out that to him, some things only required a new package. I put the shoes on. My heels still hurt, but at least I could walk. The launch event was on the first floor of the company's exhibition hall. My curriculum display board was pushed to the very back. The main screen at the front, however, showed Chloe's face. She was labeled as the charity ambassador. Chloe walked up from behind and warmly took my arm. Olivia, you don't mind, right? I used to take dance lessons too. Although I'm not as professional as you, my family is in a tough spot now. Ethan wanted to give me some exposure to help me start over. I pulled my hand back. This is a rehabilitation project, not your comeback stage. Chloe's eyes welled with tears instantly. I just wanted to help. Olivia, do you think I don't deserve to be here? Ethan walked over right at that moment. He looked at Chloe first. What's wrong? Chloe shook her head. Nothing. Olivia probably thinks I don't understand rehabilitation. She's afraid I'll embarrass her. Ethan looked at me. Olivia, Chloe is just reading the script on stage. You're still in charge of the professional execution. I asked him, why didn't you tell me beforehand? Ethan's brow furrowed. I was afraid you'd overthink it. Besides, this isn't a big deal. The successful launch of the project is more important than who stands on stage. In the past, Ethan knew exactly why I created this project. After my ankle injury, my biggest fear wasn't that I could no longer dance. It was being pinned down by a casual, well, you're broken anyway. That was why I wanted to give those injured kids a path where they could walk slowly. But now, he hid my name in a corner and gave all the spotlight to Chloe. The event coordinator whispered, MS. Olivia, are you still going on stage to present the curriculum later? Ethan answered for me first. Her foot is bothering her. She won't be presenting. Let her manage the backstage flow. When the launch event started, I sat in the corner of the backstage. When the slide for the curriculum credits came up, the screen flickered. The original line, curriculum designer, Olivia, had been changed to charity founder, Chloe. When Ethan returned backstage, I handed him the run sheet. Where is my name? He glanced at it. The PR department changed it on their own. I'll have them add it back later. You have me. Isn't that enough? I flipped to the sign-off page. In the project consultant column, Chloe's name was already stamped with the company seal. My name had been moved to the appendix. When I returned to the studio, Chloe was standing in front of the mirror practicing her moves, still wearing my white sneakers. Ethan held a new class schedule in his hands. I asked Chloe to shadow a few classes. She needs to familiarize herself with the project. I took the schedule. My hours had been cut in half, and Chloe's name was scheduled for Saturday morning. That was the class with the most children. Who changed this? Ethan said, I did. I looked at him. Do you even know the condition of these kids' ankles? Do you know which ones can't spin and which ones can't stand for too long? His brow furrowed slightly. Olivia, don't make a simple matter sound so dramatic. Chloe is just coordinating the promotion. She won't actually be teaching the movements. Chloe immediately nodded. Olivia, I'll listen to you. I'll do whatever you want me to do. As she spoke, her gaze fell on the glass cabinet in the corner. Inside the cabinet was an old pair of ballet slippers. The fabric had yellowed, and the silk ribbons were washed soft. That was the pair my mom bought for me when I first stood up after my surgery. She had stroked my head back then and said, it doesn't matter if you can't walk fast. Just being able to walk is enough. Chloe walked over. These shoes have so much history. Can I borrow them for some promo photos? I spoke almost instantly. No. Her hand stopped on the cabinet door, and her eyes turned red again. Olivia, I just think they're really meaningful. I didn't want to steal them. Ethan looked at me. They're just an old pair of shoes. She'll return them after the shoot. My tone was resolute. My mother gave them to me. He paused. For a second, I thought he would remember. He would remember the year I came out of the operating room, crying because I could never dance again, and how he had placed these exact shoes by my bed. He had said, Olivia, take it slow. I'll help you stand up again. But Ethan only said, that makes them even more perfect for the project's background story. People will connect with it more. Chloe softly added, exactly. Olivia's journey can inspire so many people. I gripped the key to the cabinet. Ethan's face darkened. Olivia, are you really going to be this petty over a charity project? Don't embarrass yourself in front of the kids. The children were standing quietly nearby. Suddenly, I found myself unable to speak. Ethan reached out and took the key from my palm. She'll return them as soon as she's done. The moment the cabinet door opened, a sharp pain shot through my old ankle injury. Chloe took out the old ballet slippers. Thank you, Olivia. I'll be very careful. During the shoot that afternoon, she couldn't fit into them. The shoes were half a size too small. Chloe looked at Ethan. Maybe we should forget it. My feet are a bit wide. Forcing them in will ruin them. Ethan looked at me. Olivia, how did you fit into them back then? I said quietly, because they're my shoes. He thought for a moment. Cut the silk ribbons off and wrap them around her current shoes. The effect will be the same. I looked up at him. Chloe had already picked up the scissors. Olivia, I really will replace them for you. Snip. The old silk ribbons were severed. I stood frozen, my palms turning ice cold. Seeing the expression on my face, Ethan looked as if he wanted to say something. But Chloe wrapped the ribbons around her sneakers and twirled in front of the mirror. Does it look good, Ethan? Ethan glanced at her. It's fine. After the shoot, the old ballet slippers were carelessly tossed onto the table. The fabric had a dusty footprint on it, and the ribbons were reduced to frayed stumps. I picked them up, rubbing the spot with my thumb for a long time. But the dirt wouldn't come off. Ethan walked over. I'll have someone restore them. He reached out to touch them, but I pulled the shoes back into my bag. Ethan's eyes darkened. Olivia, I've noticed you've been getting harder and harder to communicate with lately. Chloe whispered from the side. It's all my fault. Olivia probably thinks I stole her memories. Ethan rubbed his temples. Don't let your mind wander. I grabbed my bag and walked out. Ethan called after me. Come home tonight. We need to talk. I didn't answer. After leaving the studio, I sent a message to Lucas. Does the rehabilitation center you mentioned still need a curriculum designer? The reply came almost instantly. Yes. Have you made up your mind? I looked at the ruined ballet slippers in my bag. The next second, Ethan's call came through. Ethan didn't ask where I had gone. He only said over the phone, come home early tonight. Chloe's press release needs your sign-off. I stood on the sidewalk, my ankle wrapped in a cold brace. When I returned to our historic townhouse, Ethan's PR team was sitting in the living room. Chloe, wearing the sneakers tied with my ruined silk ribbons, was reviewing the interview outline. Olivia, you're finally back. Some people online are saying I stole your project. Ethan said it would all blow over if you just clarify things. Ethan handed me an iPad. It showed a statement. The gist of it was that I had voluntarily stepped back from the promotion, and Chloe was simply helping me present the charity work. The so-called stealing of shoes and projects was just a misunderstanding between friends. After reading it, I placed the iPad back on the table. I'm not posting this. The PR manager's expression shifted, but Ethan remained calm. Olivia, the public backlash has already started. Just say a word. It's better for everyone. Chloe bit her lip. Olivia, I'm really getting dragged online. You know my family just went bankrupt. I have nothing left now. I stared at the ribbons on her feet. Ethan stood up. Olivia, enough. I replaced the shoes, and you're still working on the project. Chloe just needs a temporary opportunity. Why do you have to push her into a corner like this? I shot back. What about you? Have you not pushed me into a corner? He stared at me, frustration flashing in his eyes. You have the studio, you have Blackwood Enterprises resources, and you have me. What does Chloe have? I suddenly found it incredibly laughable. So having him was, in his eyes, a form of compensation that could wipe away all my grievances. Ethan handed me his phone. Olivia, don't make things difficult for me in front of others. Chloe said softly. Ethan, let it go. If Olivia doesn't want to, forget it. I shouldn't have come back anyway. She stood up to leave, but tripped on her feet. Ethan caught her immediately. The ribbon-wrapped sneakers struck the leg of the coffee table, ripping the old fabric further. My mind went completely blank. Ethan followed my gaze, and his face turned pale for a split second. But Chloe cried first. I'm sorry, I didn't do it on purpose. I'm just so clumsy. I can't do anything right. Ethan helped her sit down, then turned to me. Don't look at her like that. Olivia, if you don't post the statement today, I will freeze the funding for the project. The studio's lease is under Blackwood Enterprises. Think carefully. The PR team remained silent. Chloe kept her head down, but her fingers were tightly gripping the frayed ribbon. I heard my own voice ask, so you want me to endorse her lie? Ethan said, it's not an endorsement. It's for the bigger picture. The bigger picture. I nodded and took the phone. Ethan's expression softened as I posted the statement exactly as written. Within minutes, the comments shifted. Some praised my generosity. Some pitted Chloe. Others said that anyone truly doing charity wouldn't care about getting credit. Seeing the public opinion die down, Ethan looked relieved. Tomorrow, I'll take you to buy shoes. You can pick whatever limited edition you want. Olivia, let's stop fighting. I looked at the smear of ointment on his cuff. I suddenly remembered how he had opened the tube of medicine for Chloe last night. My heel was still taped with a band-aid, and it still hurt to walk. But I no longer wanted him to know. The next day, Ethan actually went to the luxury boutique. The sales associate lined up 10 pairs of limited edition flats. The colors, leather, and sizes were all chosen according to my taste. "Wrap them all up," Ethan said. The associate smiled. Mr. Blackwood is so good to his wife. Ethan's fingers paused, but he didn't deny it. At 9 in the evening, he returned to the townhouse carrying 10 luxury shoe boxes. The lights in the living room were off. He frowned and called out, "Olivia?" No one answered. Ethan put the shoe boxes down in the entryway and opened the shoe cabinet. The row that used to be filled with my shoes was completely empty. His hands froze. The door to the walk-in closet was half open. Only empty hangers remained inside. My suitcase was gone, my passport was gone, and even the ruined ballet slippers in the glass cabinet were gone. On the top shelf of the shoe cabinet, only a single key remained. Alongside it lay my wedding band, a simple, platinum circle that had once represented a lifetime of promises. Now, under the dim recessed light of the foyer, it looked like nothing more than a discarded piece of hardware. I had placed them there right before I stepped over the threshold, closing the door of the townhouse quietly behind me. There was no grand exit, no slammed doors, and no tears. The silence of the empty streets at night was a relief compared to the suffocating air of the home I had shared with Ethan for 5 years. My heel throbbed with a dull, persistent ache. Every step on the cold pavement sent a sharp reminder up my leg, but I didn't stop. I walked down the block to where a yellow cab was idling under the street lamp. The driver glanced at my single suitcase in the rearview mirror. "Where to, miss?" "The Rehabilitation Center on West Maple," I said, my voice sounding distant even to myself. "Just the clinic, please." As the cab pulled away, I looked back at the townhouse one last time. The lights on the second floor were dark. Ethan was probably still carrying those 10 luxury shoe boxes up the stairs, expecting to find me sitting on the edge of the bed, waiting to be placated by his expensive peace offerings. He had always believed that everything in this world had a price tag. If a pair of shoes was taken, a more expensive pair would fix it. If my dignity was bruised, a larger donation to my studio would heal it. He didn't understand that some things, once broken, couldn't be repaired by a transaction. The cab arrived at the clinic 30 minutes later. The building was dark, except for a single warm light shining through the glass doors of the lobby. Lucas was waiting for me. He wore a simple flannel shirt and carried a clipboard, his expression shifting from professional focus to quiet concern the moment he saw me. He didn't ask about the suitcase, nor did he ask why my eyes were hollow and dry. He simply pushed the door open and took the heavy bag from my hand. "The second-floor apartment is ready," Lucas said softly. "It's small, but the heating works well, and the view of the courtyard is nice." "Thank you, Lucas," I murmured. He looked down at my feet. I was wearing the stiff, expensive flats Ethan had forced onto me that morning. The leather was beautiful, but the structure was entirely wrong for my injured ankle. It offered no support, forcing my weight onto the raw, blistered skin of my heel. Without a word, Lucas set my suitcase down, walked over to the clinic's reception desk, and returned with a pair of soft, gray therapeutic slippers, the kind we kept for patients transitioning out of heavy casts. "Change into these," he said, kneeling down. For a split second, my breath caught. The image of Ethan dropping to one knee flashed in my mind, the arrogant man who bent his knee only for me until he chose to bend it for someone else. But Lucas didn't reach for my feet. He didn't touch me. He simply placed the slippers on the floor in front of me, stood back up, and gave me space to breathe. "You're safe here, Olivia," Lucas said, his voice steady and grounding. "Take your time." I slipped my feet into the warm, cushioned slippers. For the first time in weeks, the throbbing in my ankle began to subside. I took a deep breath, the sterile, comforting scent of lavender and clean linen filling my lungs. I was no longer walking on Ethan's path. I was standing on my own. For the first 48 hours, my phone was a relentless source of noise. Ethan's calls came in waves. At first, they were spaced an hour apart. By the second day, they were back-to-back, accompanied by a barrage of text messages. "Olivia, stop this childish game. The boutique delivered the shoes. They are waiting in the foyer. Come home. Where are you? Your phone is on, so I know you're reading these. Don't make me look for you. If this is about the statement, it's already done. The public has moved on. There is no reason for you to keep hiding." I read them with a strange sense of detachment, as if I were reading messages meant for someone else. I didn't reply. On the third morning, I went to a local carrier, changed my phone number, and blocked his email address. But Ethan Blackwood was not a man who accepted being ignored. By Tuesday, my lawyer, Mr. Vance, called my new number. He had been a friend of my late mother and was the only person I trusted with my current location. "Olivia," Mr. Vance's voice was heavy with concern. "Mr. Blackwood's legal team has contacted my office. They are contesting the dissolution of the marriage, claiming you are acting under emotional duress. More pressingly, they have frozen the operational accounts of your studio. I sat at the small kitchen table of my new apartment, looking out at the rain washing over the courtyard. He's trying to starve me out. Yes, Mr. Vance sighed. He knows the lease for the studio is under Blackwood Enterprises. He also knows the intellectual property of the dance curriculum is technically registered under the joint charity venture. He's threatening to shut down the entire project if you don't return to negotiate in person. Let him, I said quietly. There was a long silence on the other end of the line. Olivia, you spent 6 months of your life on that curriculum. Those children depend on you. They depend on the curriculum, Mr. Vance, not the Blackwood name. I replied, my voice remarkably steady. I have the original physical drafts of the lessons. I have the clinical notes. If Ethan wants to keep the registered name and the empty studio space, he can have them. Lucas and I are already setting up a new program here at the Maple Clinic. We don't need his corporate backing. And the marriage? File the papers for a contested divorce. I don't want a single penny of his family's wealth. I don't want the townhouse, the stocks, or the alimony. Tell his lawyers I am leaving with exactly what I brought into the marriage, my name and my clothes. He won't accept that, Olivia. To a man like Ethan, a wife leaving without asking for a settlement is an insult to his pride. It means his wealth has no power over you. That is his problem to solve, not mine, I said and hung up. As if on cue, the door to the apartment opened and Lucas walked in carrying a cardboard box filled with physical therapy bands and colorful foam rollers. We have our first 3 registrations for the new Saturday class, Lucas said, a small, encouraging smile on his face. The parents heard you left the Blackwood studio. They said they didn't care about the high-tech exhibition halls. They just wanted the therapist who actually knew how to handle their children's joints. I looked at the box of simple, practical tools. There were no cameras here, no charity ambassadors, and no PR teams looking for the perfect photo opportunity. Let's get to work, I said. While my life settled into a quiet, rigorous routine of clinical work and physical therapy, the world I had left behind was beginning to splinter. Without my daily presence at the Blackwood Foundation, the cracks in their glamorous facade began to show. Clara, a junior instructor at my old studio who had stayed behind out of financial necessity, called me from a burner phone late one evening. Olivia, it's a disaster here, Clara whispered, her voice tight with anxiety. Ever since you left, Chloe has been trying to run the Saturday morning classes. But she doesn't know anything about pathology. Yesterday, she tried to force little Toby, the boy with a congenital ankle weakness, to perform a series of repetitive leaps for a promotional video. My heart squeezed with immediate anxiety. Did Toby get hurt? I managed to stop her before he jumped, but Chloe was furious, Clara said. She told Mr. Blackwood that I was being uncooperative and trying to undermine her authority. He threatened to fire me on the spot. Olivia, she doesn't understand that these kids aren't just props for her comeback story. She treats them like backup dancers. Clara, you need to document everything, I said, my professional instincts kicking in. Keep a log of every exercise Chloe prescribes, and if she tries to force any child into a movement that violates their clinical therapy plan, refuse to assist and write an incident report immediately. I will, Clara promised. But there's a big charity gala next Thursday. They're calling it the Grace in Motion Showcase. Chloe is supposed to lead a live demonstration with the children on stage to secure the winter funding. She's completely out of her depth, Olivia. She's practicing in the studio until midnight, wearing your old ballet slippers, or what's left of them, and trying to choreograph a routine that looks pretty but is incredibly dangerous for the kids' joints. Ethan is letting her do this? I asked, though deep down I already knew the answer. Mr. Blackwood is rarely here, Clara said. When he does come, he looks distracted. He just tells the marketing team to handle it. He looks like he hasn't slept in days, but whenever Chloe complains about the negative comments online, he just signs another check to suppress the articles. After I hung up, I sat in the dark for a long time. I remembered how Ethan used to watch me work with the children. In the early days of our marriage, he would sit in the back of the studio, his laptop closed, watching with quiet intensity as I patiently guided a child through a simple balance exercise. You have so much patience, Olivia, he had said once, his hand resting gently on my shoulder as we walked home. I don't understand how you can spend 3 hours just helping a kid take 10 steps. Because those 10 steps are their entire world, Ethan, I had replied. He had smiled then, a genuine, warm smile that reached his eyes. But somewhere along the way, the beauty of those 10 steps had been lost to him. They had been replaced by corporate tax write-offs, brand expansion, and the fragile ego of his childhood friend. The next day, I focused entirely on my new students. Among them was a 7-year-old girl named Lily, who had recently undergone reconstructive tendon surgery. She was terrified of putting weight on her left foot. It hurts, Ms. Olivia, Lily whispered, her eyes pooling with tears as she stood before a low wooden balance beam. I knelt down in front of her. My own ankle was securely wrapped in a supportive brace, hidden beneath my simple, comfortable sneakers. I know it hurts, Lily, I said softly, holding out my hands. But do you see these shoes I'm wearing? They aren't fancy, but they keep me steady. We are going to take just one step together. If it hurts too much, we stop. Deal? Lily looked at my hands, then down at my shoes. She nodded slowly. With agonizing slowness, she lifted her foot and placed it on the beam. I held her hands firmly, absorbing her tremors, guiding her center of gravity with steady, practiced support. Good, I whispered. Just like that. You are in control, Lily, not the pain. When she successfully took 3 steps, her face lit up with a brilliant, triumphant smile. Her mother, watching from the sidelines, wiped a tear from her cheek. This was what Ethan had thrown away. He thought he had taken my career, but he had only taken the stage. The true work was right here, in this quiet, unassuming room. The night of the Grace in Motion showcase arrived. Lucas and I had just finished our evening sessions at the clinic. He had ordered takeout, and we were sitting in the small staff room when he hesitantly pulled up his tablet. The Blackwood showcase is being live-streamed, Lucas said, his tone cautious. Do you want to see? I hesitated, the noodle box heavy in my hands. Part of me wanted to shut the door on that chapter of my life forever. But another part, the part that still cared deeply for the children I had left behind, needed to know they were safe. Turn it on, I said. The screen flickered to life, showing the grand ballroom of the Blackwood Plaza. The room was dripping in white orchids and crystal chandeliers. The elite of the city sat at round tables, champagne flutes catching the light. On the stage, Chloe stood in a pristine, custom-made tulle dress. And on her feet, wrapped awkwardly around her white sneakers, were the frayed, ruined silk ribbons of my mother's ballet slippers. Seeing them on display like a cheap accessory made a cold, sharp anger flare in my chest. She had cut them, destroyed their structure, and now she was wearing them like a costume of survival, a mockery of the struggle I had gone through to walk again. Ethan was seated in the front row. He looked immaculate in his tailored tuxedo, but his posture was rigid. He wasn't looking at the stage with pride. His eyes were scanning the crowd, his brow slightly furrowed as if he were waiting for someone who hadn't arrived. The music began, a sweeping, dramatic orchestral piece. Chloe began her routine, leading 5 children from my old class onto the stage. Among them was Lily's older brother, Toby, and a young girl named Maya, who was recovering from a severe ligament tear. As I watched, my professional anxiety turned into absolute dread. The choreography was entirely wrong for a therapeutic demonstration. Chloe was treating the children like props, directing them to hold dramatic, static poses that placed immense pressure on their unsupportive joints. She was spinning around them, her movements clumsy but theatrical, her sneakers squeaking against the polished stage floor. She's forcing Maya to hold a single leg extension on an incline, Lucas muttered, his eyes narrowing as he leaned closer to the screen. That's a grade 2 tear waiting to happen. She doesn't know, I whispered, my hands trembling. She doesn't know how to read their body language. She doesn't see that Maya's knee is hyperextending. On screen, Chloe signaled for the grand finale. She wanted the children to leap from a raised platform in the center of the stage, landing in a synchronized pose around her. It was a classic performance move, completely unsuitable for children in active rehabilitation. Toby stepped up to the platform. I saw Clara, standing in the wings, frantically waving her hands to get Chloe's attention, but Chloe ignored her, smiling radiantly for the flashing cameras. Don't do it, I pleaded to the screen. Toby leaped. The landing was hard. His weak ankle gave way instantly. A sickening, sharp crack echoed through the microphone, followed by a piercing cry of pain. Toby collapsed onto the stage, clutching his leg, his face contorted in agony. The music screeched to a halt. The audience gasped. Chloe froze, her smile instantly vanishing as she stared down at the crying child, completely paralyzed by panic. She looked up at the cameras, then down at Toby, making no move to help him. It was Clara who rushed onto the stage first, sliding to her knees to support Toby's leg. Ethan stood up from his seat, his face pale, his composure shattering as the live stream abruptly cut to a technical difficulty slide. I closed the laptop with a snap. My heart was pounding against my ribs, a cold sweat breaking out on my forehead. I have to go to the hospital, I said, standing up so fast my chair scraped loudly against the floor. Olivia, wait, Lucas said, reaching out to gently touch my forearm. If you go there, Ethan will be there. The press will be there. It's going to be a circus. Toby is my patient, Lucas, I said, my voice cracking with emotion. I designed his recovery plan. I know his surgical history. If those doctors at the private clinic don't have his charts, they might recommend an invasive surgery he doesn't need. Lucas looked at me for a long moment, seeing the determination in my eyes. He nodded, grabbing his car keys. I'm driving you, he said. The private wing of the St. Jude Medical Center was quiet, but the tension in the air was palpable. When Lucas and I stepped out of the elevator, we immediately saw the Blackwood security detail guarding the hallway. Standing near the vending machines, looking utterly defeated, was Clara. When she saw me, her eyes filled with relief. "Olivia, thank God you're here." "How is Toby?" I asked, rushing over to her. "It's a severe sprain and a partial ligament tear," Clara said, her voice shaking. "They're prepping him for an MRI now. His mother is furious. She's in there with him, and she refuses to let any of the Blackwood Foundation staff near her son. She's threatening to sue." "And Chloe? She's in the private waiting room," Clara sneered, crying about how this is going to ruin her public image. "She's blaming the stage floor for being too slippery." Before I could ask anything else, the door to the waiting room opened. Ethan stepped out. He had discarded his tuxedo jacket, his white shirt sleeves rolled up to his elbows. His hair was messy, and the exhaustion on his face was undeniable. When his eyes landed on me, his entire body went rigid. For a second, a flash of pure, desperate relief crossed his face. "Olivia," he breathed, taking a rapid step toward me. "You came." I stood my ground, my hands folded calmly in front of me. "I came for Toby, Ethan, not for you." His footsteps halted. The relief in his eyes was quickly replaced by the familiar, defensive wall of his arrogance. "Toby is being taken care of by the best specialists in the city," Ethan said, his voice dropping into its business-like cadence. "I've already arranged for his family to receive a full settlement. The medical bills are covered." "A settlement?" I let out a dry, bitter laugh. "You still think you can write a check to erase the physical trauma of a child who is forced to perform for your ego?" "It wasn't for my ego, Olivia," Ethan snapped, his voice echoing in the quiet corridor. "I did this for the foundation. I did this to keep the project afloat after you walked out on us." "I walked out on you, Ethan," I corrected him, my voice dangerously calm. "I left the foundation because you had already turned it into a circus. You gave my curriculum to a woman who doesn't know the first thing about physical therapy just so she could feel important again. And now, a child is paying the price for your indulgence." "Ethan?" The soft, whimpering voice came from behind him. Chloe stood in the doorway of the waiting room. She had wrapped a cashmere coat over her tulle dress, but she was still wearing those white sneakers, the ruined silk ribbons trailing on the floor like dirty strings. Her eyes were red and puffy. "Olivia, please don't be angry with Ethan," Chloe sobbed, reaching out to clutch Ethan's arm. "I didn't mean to hurt Toby. I just wanted to make the showcase beautiful. I thought the children were stronger than they were." "They are children with medical conditions, Chloe," I said, looking directly at her. "They aren't your backup dancers. And those ribbons on your feet," I pointed to the frayed stumps, "were the only things I had left of my mother's support. You ruined them for a 5-minute photo op." Chloe shrank back, looking up at Ethan with wide, pleading eyes. "Ethan, I told her I would replace them." Ethan looked down at Chloe's hand on his sleeve, then back at me. For the first time, I saw a flicker of genuine shame in his eyes. He tried to step away from her, but she held on tightly. "Olivia, let's talk in private," Ethan pleaded, his tone losing its sharp edge. "Please. Just you and me. I'll make this right. I'll fire the PR team. I'll shut down Chloe's involvement. Just come back. The children need you. I need you." I looked at him, the man I had loved for 7 years, the man who had once promised to make every path I walked soft. And all I felt was a profound, empty pity. "You don't need me, Ethan," I said softly. "You need an assistant who won't talk back. You need a wife who'll stand quietly in the background while you give her life away to keep your childhood friend happy. But that woman doesn't exist anymore." I turned to Lucas, who was standing a few feet away, keeping a silent, protective watch. "Let's go see Toby's mother," I said. Ethan took a step forward, his hand reaching out to grab my shoulder. "Olivia, wait." But before his hand could touch me, Lucas stepped into his path. Lucas didn't raise his voice, but his physical presence was immovable. "Mr. Blackwood," Lucas said, his voice cold as ice. "She said she is here for the patient. Do not touch her." Ethan stared at Lucas, his eyes burning with a mixture of rage and sudden, terrifying realization. He looked at Lucas, then at me, noticing for the first time the comfortable, supportive sneakers I was wearing, shoes he hadn't bought, shoes that didn't carry his brand or his wealth. He realized, with absolute certainty, that he no longer had any leverage over me. Chapter 6: The Liquidation of Blackwood. The fallout from the St. Jude incident was swift and merciless. Despite Ethan's attempts to suppress the media, a video of Toby's fall went viral on social media. A prominent investigative journalist began digging into the Blackwood Foundation, uncovering the fact that the qualified lead therapist, myself, had been replaced by an unqualified socialite whose family had recently gone bankrupt. The public backlash was immense. The Blackwood Enterprises stock took a significant hit, and several major donors pulled their funding from the charity, demanding a full audit. 2 weeks after the incident, Mr. Vance called me into his office. "Ethan has signed the divorce papers," Mr. Vance said, sliding a manila folder across his desk. I paused, my pen hovering over the signature line. "He didn't contest it?" "No," Mr. Vance said, a faint smile playing on his lips. "He tried to at first. But when Toby's mother filed a formal lawsuit against the Foundation for Medical Negligence, she named Chloe and Ethan as co-defendants. Her lawyer is using your original clinical notes, which you kept, to prove that the Foundation knowingly violated Toby's medical therapy plan. If Ethan continued to fight the divorce, we would have subpoenaed his personal and corporate communications regarding your forced statement," Mr. Vance continued. His legal team realized that a prolonged divorce battle would completely destroy what was left of his corporate reputation. He had no choice but to sign. I looked at the papers. There was no division of assets. No alimony. I was walking away with my name, my personal savings, and the full, undisputed intellectual property rights to my dance therapy curriculum. I signed my name on the final line. As I handed the papers back to Mr. Vance, a weight I hadn't realized I was carrying evaporated from my chest. I felt light, as if I could finally draw a full breath. "What about Chloe?" I asked. "She's facing personal liability in the lawsuit," Mr. Vance said. "And from what I hear, the Blackwood family has completely cut her off. Ethan's board of directors forced him to distance himself from her to save the company's stock. She's currently living in a rented apartment on the outskirts of the city, her bank accounts frozen by the bankruptcy court. It seems her comeback ended before it even began." I felt no joy in her downfall. It was simply the natural consequence of trying to build a life on a foundation of stolen memories and cheap shortcuts. "And Ethan? He's still the CEO," Mr. Vance said, looking at me gently. "But he is very much alone." The autumn air was crisp and cool as I walked down the street toward our new clinic. The fallen leaves crunched softly beneath my feet. I was wearing a pair of simple, dark blue running shoes that Lucas had helped me select. They had excellent arch support and a custom orthotic insert that kept my injured ankle perfectly aligned. My heel was completely healed. The raw wound from that night at the gala had closed, leaving only a faint, silvery scar, a quiet reminder of the pain I had survived. When I entered the clinic, the sound of laughter and bright, upbeat music drifted from the second-floor studio. Lucas was standing by the door, watching as Lily successfully walked across the balance beam, her arms raised in triumph. She didn't fall. She didn't jump. She simply walked at her own pace, her mother clapping happily from the sidelines. When Lily saw me, her face lit up. "Miss Olivia, look." I did it without holding anyone's hand. "I saw, Lily," I said, kneeling down to give her a warm hug. "You did beautifully. I am so proud of you." "Are we going to dance today?" she asked, her eyes shining with excitement. "Yes," I smiled. "We're going to dance. But we're going to do it safely, step by step." After the class ended and the children left, the studio fell into a peaceful silence. The afternoon sun streamed through the large arched windows, casting warm, golden squares across the polished wooden floor. I sat on the edge of the low wooden stage, slowly unlacing my sneakers. Lucas walked over, carrying 2 cups of warm tea. He handed one to me and sat down beside me, his long legs dangling over the edge. "We got a delivery today," Lucas said quietly, gesturing toward a small cardboard box sitting on the reception desk. "It was addressed to you. No return address, but I think you know who it's from." I looked at the box. I didn't need to open it to know what was inside. It was probably another pair of luxury shoes, or perhaps the restored ballet slippers, stitched back together by some expensive specialist in a desperate, futile attempt to piece together the past. "Should I throw it out?" Lucas asked. "No," I said, taking a sip of the warm tea. "Just leave it there. Or donate it. It doesn't matter anymore." Lucas turned to look at me, his gaze steady and warm. "Are you happy, Olivia?" I looked down at my feet, bare, resting on the warm wooden floor. There was no pain, no tension, and no fear of being pushed onto a stage where I didn't belong. "Yes," I said, a genuine, peaceful smile spreading across my face. "I am." Years ago, Ethan had promised me that he would make sure every path I walked was soft. But he had forgotten that a soft path built by someone else's hands can be taken away at any moment. Now, as I looked out at the sunlit studio, I knew the truth. The softest path wasn't one made of expensive leather or corporate luxury. It was the path I had built for myself, step by difficult step, on a foundation of my own strength. And this time, no one could ever take it away.